Captain Lee Woojin stood on the bridge of the Soul Pride as it moved through the dark space between stars. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of engines and the gentle beeping of computers. His crew had been traveling for 3 months, now on humanity's first journey to the outer edges of their solar system DR Park. Minji was checking her instruments when the screens suddenly lit up with bright colors. She called out to the captain in excitement as strange symbols appeared on every display. The computers started making new sounds they had never heard before. Something was happening. The main screen flickered and went black for a moment. Then a figure appeared that made everyone on the bridge step back in shock. It was clearly not human. The being had pale blue skin that seemed to shine like crystal and large eyes that looked like they held tiny stars. The creature spoke, and its voice was perfect Korean, which made everyone even more surprised. Greetings, people of the planet called Earth. We are the Galactic Council, and we have been watching your world for many years. We have seen your ships reach your moon and now travel between your planets. We believe you are ready to join the community of intelligent species, Captain. Woojin felt his heart beating fast, but he tried to stay calm. He had trained for many situations, but talking to aliens was not one of them. The creature on the screen continued speaking with a voice that sounded both friendly and somehow looking down on them. I am Ambassador Velthury, and I speak for the Council of 1,000 Worlds. We invite your species to become junior members of our great organization. Many species have joined us over the centuries and found peace and prosperity under our guidance. DR Park. Minji was writing notes as fast as she could. Her hands were shaking with excitement. This was the moment that would change everything for humanity. First contact with an advanced alien civilization was actually happening. The ambassador continued, your species shows promise, but you are still very young compared to most council members. You have much to learn about the galaxy and how civilized species behave. We will teach you the proper ways to live in peace, Commander. Kim Dae-ho was listening carefully to every word. The ambassador sounded nice, but something felt wrong about the way it spoke. It was like an adult talking to a small child who did not understand important things. You will be given a small territory to govern and basic trading rights, the ambassador explained. Your people can serve the greater good by providing resources and labor to more advanced civilizations. This is how new species contribute to galactic harmony. Engineer Choi Hae-eun was monitoring the alien transmission and noticed something strange. The signal was incredibly complex, far beyond anything humans had seen before. But her computers were somehow able to decode it perfectly, as if the aliens had studied human technology in great detail. The ambassador raised one pale hand. We understand that this news might be overwhelming to your primitive minds. You have 7 of your Earth days to decide whether to accept our generous offer. Send your answer to these coordinates, and we will guide you to the nearest council station. The transmission ended, and the bridge fell silent. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what to say. They had just been offered membership in a galactic civilization, but it felt more like they were being told they were children who needed to be taken care of. Captain Woojin called for an emergency meeting with his senior officers. Within an hour, they were all gathered in the conference room, looking at the recording of the alien message. Over and over, this is incredible, said Dr. Park Minji, but something bothers me about how they spoke to us. They acted like we should be grateful just to be noticed by them, Commander. Kim Dae-ho nodded. They said we are primitive and young, but they also said they have been watching us for years. If we are so primitive, how did we build ships that can travel between planets? Engineer Choi Hae-eun pulled up data on her tablet. I analyzed their transmission signal. The technology is advanced, but not as advanced as they want us to think. I could build something similar with the right materials. The captain thought about what his officers were saying. The aliens seemed to think humans were weak and simple, but humanity had survived ice ages, wars, diseases, and had conquered their own planet through determination and intelligence. Over the next few days, the Soul Pride received more messages from Earth Mission Control. Was in chaos as world leaders tried to decide what to do. Some wanted to accept the offer immediately. Others wanted to learn more about these aliens before making any decisions. DR Park Minji spent hours studying everything they knew about the alien technology. She discovered that the Galactic Council seemed to use very old methods of space travel and communication. Their ships were large and slow, and their computers were powerful but not very creative. Meanwhile, Commander Kim Dae-ho was analyzing the military aspects of what they had learned. The aliens seemed to think in very straight lines about warfare and tactics. They had rules and traditions, but did not seem to adapt well to new situations. Engineer Choi Hae-eun made the most interesting discovery of all. She found that human technology was actually more advanced in some ways than what the aliens were using. Humans had developed faster engines, better weapons, and more flexible computer systems. The captain realized that the Galactic Council had made a big mistake. They thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would be grateful for any help, but humans were not primitive. They were just different. On the sixth day, Captain Woojin received new orders from Earth. Instead of simply accepting or rejecting the alien offer, humanity had decided to do something unexpected. They would go to the council station, but they would not go as begging children. The Soul Pride changed course toward the coordinates the aliens had given them, but now the ship carried something that would shock the Galactic Council. Human intelligence had been working day and night to prepare a surprise DR park. Minji had compiled detailed reports on everything they could learn about alien technology. Commander Kim Dae-ho had analyzed their military capabilities and found weaknesses. Engineer Choi Hae-eun had prepared demonstrations of human innovation that would prove humans were not the primitive species the Council thought they were. As the Soul Pride approached the massive alien station, Captain Woojin felt calm and confident. The aliens expected humans to arrive with heads bowed, asking for permission to join their civilization. Instead, they were about to meet a species that had conquered their own world through intelligence, creativity, and the refusal to give up when things got difficult. The Galactic Council was about to learn that they had seriously underestimated humanity. The station ahead was enormous, bigger than any human city, but Captain Woojin was not intimidated. His species had built cities that reached the clouds and machines that could think. They had turned deserts into gardens and had learned to fly among the stars. Ambassador Valkyrie was waiting for them with what looked like a welcoming committee of various alien species. All of them seemed confident that they were meeting with a simple young race that would be grateful for their guidance. They had no idea that they were about to encounter something that would change the entire galaxy forever. The council chamber was huge, with tall ceilings that seemed to reach into the stars themselves. Hundreds of different alien species sat in circles around a central platform where Ambassador Valkyrie stood waiting for the human delegation. Captain Lee Woojin walked into the chamber with his team behind him. Dr. Park Minji carried a small device that recorded everything they saw. Commander Kim Dae-ho kept his eyes moving, watching for any signs of danger. Engineer Choi Hae-eun looked at all the alien technology with great interest. The aliens in the chamber whispered among themselves as they watched the humans enter. Most had never seen beings from Earth before, and they seemed curious but not particularly impressed. The humans looked small and weak compared to many of the larger alien species. Ambassador Valkyrie raised her crystalline hand for silence. Fellow council members, we welcome the representatives of the planet Earth. However, before they can join our great organization, they must prove they are worthy of membership. A massive alien stood up from the front row. His skin was dark red and covered in what looked like natural armor. His voice was deep and frightening when he spoke. I am Council Leader Morthik of the Drakmari Empire. For 10,000 years, my people have led the Council military force. Morthik pointed one clawed finger at the humans. These creatures look soft and breakable. How can such weak beings contribute to our mighty civilization? They must be tested before we can trust them with even the smallest responsibilities. Captain Woojin stepped forward respectfully. We accept whatever tests you believe are necessary. We came here to prove that humanity deserves a place among the stars. The first test will be individual combat, announced Morthik. Our greatest warrior Vorgak has never lost a battle in 300 years. If your species can defeat him, you will pass this test. A creature even larger than Morthik entered the chamber. Vorgak stood nearly 3 meters tall, with arms like tree trunks and claws that could cut through metal. His roar echoed through the chamber, making several smaller aliens step back in fear. Lieutenant Colonel Han Ji-won had been quietly standing with the human group. Now, he stepped forward with a calm smile on his face. I will face your champion. The aliens in the chamber began laughing. Some made comments about how the small human would be crushed in seconds. Vorgak looked down at Han Jiwan and seemed confused. That such a tiny opponent would dare challenge him. The combat area was a circular platform in the center of the chamber. Han Jiwan walked onto it wearing simple human military clothing, while Vorgak stomped forward with confidence that shook the floor. The battle began with Vorgak charging forward using his massive size and strength. Han Jiwan moved like water flowing around a rock, dodging the powerful attacks while staying just out of reach. Vorgak grew frustrated and began attacking more wildly. His claws whistled through the air where Han Jiwan had been standing moments before. The human soldier was always one step ahead, reading his opponent's moves before they happened. Han Jiwan waited for the perfect moment when Vorgak overextended himself during a particularly violent attack the human struck. The pressure points he hit were not meant to cause damage, but to disrupt the aliens' nervous system. Vorgak collapsed to the ground, unable to move, while Han Jiwan stood over him, breathing normally. The chamber fell completely silent as hundreds of aliens stared in shock at what they had just witnessed. Second test began immediately. Admiral Song Eunbi was called forward to command virtual spaceships in a battle simulation against the Council's best military strategists. The simulation showed two fleets facing each other in space. The Council fleet was arranged in traditional formation with large, powerful ships in straight lines, ready for direct combat. Admiral Song Eunbi looked at the enemy formation for several minutes, studying their positions and movements. The Council commanders were confident because they had used these same tactics to defeat dozens of species over the centuries. When the battle began, the Council expected the human ships to charge forward in a desperate attack. Instead, Admiral Song Eunbi split her fleet into small groups that moved in unpredictable patterns. The Council commanders tried to respond, but their ships were too slow and their thinking too rigid. The human fleet attacked from multiple directions at once, confusing the enemy and making their superior numbers useless. Within minutes, the Council fleet was in chaos. Some ships were attacking empty space while others fired on their own allies by mistake. Admiral Song Eunbi had turned their strength against them using psychological warfare and misdirection. Third test was technological innovation. Dar Lim Jungho was presented with a complex alien device that had been broken for over 200 years. Dozens of the galaxy's smartest scientists had tried to repair it and failed. The device was about the size of a human head with crystalline components that pulsed with dim light. Dr. Lim Jungho examined it carefully using tools from his kit while the alien scientists watched with barely hidden amusement. They expected him to spend days or weeks trying to understand the alien technology. Instead, Dr. Lim Jungho worked for 3 hours, making small adjustments and replacing damaged components with human equivalents. When he finished, the device began glowing brighter than it ever had before. Not only was it repaired, but it was running at 3 times its original efficiency. The alien scientists could not believe what they were seeing. The final test was diplomatic negotiation. Ambassador Kang Suyon was given a complex trade dispute between 5 different species that had been arguing for 50 years. The problem involved mining rights, shipping routes, and cultural differences that seemed impossible to resolve. Each species had demands that directly conflicted with what the others wanted. Ambassador Kang Suyon spent one day talking to each group. Separately, she listened to their concerns and asked questions that no one had thought to ask before. Instead of trying to force a compromise, she created an entirely new solution that gave each species something they wanted more than their original demands. The new trade agreement would make all 5 species more prosperous than they had ever been. When she presented her solution to the Council, the alien diplomats were amazed. They had been thinking about the problem in the same way for decades, while the human had seen possibilities they never imagined. Council leader Morthic stood up slowly, his expression showing confusion and worry. "These results are unexpected," he announced. "Your species has passed all our tests, but this should not be possible." Dr. Park Minji stepped forward with her recording device. "We have been studying your methods during these tests. Your technology is impressive, but you have not changed your approaches in thousands of years." Commander Kim Dae-ho added, "Your military tactics are strong but predictable. You fight the same way against every enemy, regardless of their strengths or weaknesses." Engineer Choi Hae-yoon held up the device Dr. Lim Junho had repaired. Your science is advanced, but you have stopped asking new questions. You use the same solutions for every problem, Captain Lee. Woojin looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces that showed growing concern. We did not come here to prove we are better than you. We came to show that we are different. The chamber erupted in worried conversations as species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia began to realize they might have made a terrible mistake. Ambassador Valkyrie called for order, but her voice was shaking. These humans were not the simple, primitive species the Council had expected. They were something entirely new and potentially very dangerous. The tests that were meant to humble humanity had instead revealed that Earth possessed capabilities that could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Emergency meetings were called throughout the galaxy as news of the human tests spread like wildfire. Species that had not spoken to each other in centuries suddenly found themselves in urgent communication about the threat that Earth might represent. Dr. Patel Reams, the Council's chief analyst, stood before the emergency assembly. His tentacles were trembling as he prepared to deliver the most disturbing report in galactic history. The chamber was packed with representatives from every major civilization. Fellow Council members, he began, his voice shaking slightly. I have spent the last week analyzing every piece of data we have about these humans. The results are terrifying. The massive viewing screen behind him lit up with images of Earth showing cities that stretched to the horizon and machines that moved through the sky. Like metal birds, the alien audience watched in growing alarm. These beings did not evolve in the peaceful environments that created our civilizations. Dr. Reams continued, their entire planet is a death world where everything tries to kill everything else. The screen showed images of earth storms that could destroy cities, earthquakes that could split continents, and creatures that existed only to hunt other creatures. The aliens in the chamber made sounds of horror and disgust, but that is not the worst part. Dr. Reams' tentacles were now coiled in fear. These humans did not just survive their terrible world, they conquered it. They turned every challenge into an opportunity to become stronger. Captain No Sung Min was on the bridge of the Soul Pride when urgent messages began arriving from Earth. The human government had activated something called Project Ascension, and resources were being moved at an incredible rate. Admiral Lee Woojin had been promoted after the success at the Council Station. Now he was receiving reports that made him smile. Earth was not just responding to the galactic situation, they were preparing to change it completely. Professor Young Haijin was in her laboratory on Earth studying the alien technology samples that the Soul Pride had brought back. What she discovered made her call an emergency meeting with the Planetary Defense Council. The aliens have been using the same technology for thousands of years, she explained to the gathered officials. Their ships are large and powerful, but they are also slow and predictable. She activated a holographic display showing the difference between human and alien spacecraft. Human ships were smaller but faster, more maneuverable, and packed with weapons that could adapt to any situation. Our technology advances every year, she continued, while theirs stays the same. They have become comfortable with their superiority and stopped innovating. We have never stopped improving. Meanwhile, throughout the galaxy, the Council spy networks were reporting disturbing news from Earth. Human industrial capacity was expanding at a rate that seemed impossible. Entire asteroid belts were being converted into shipyards and manufacturing centers. Ambassador Valkyrie tried to calm the worried Council members. These humans are still bound by the same physical laws as everyone else, she insisted. There are limits to what any species can achieve. Her confidence was shattered when new reports arrived. Human ships were performing maneuvers that should have been impossible. The crews should have been crushed by the forces involved, but somehow they survived. Captain Cha Min-seok was demonstrating the capabilities of his ship, the Busan Thunder, to a group of alien observers. His crew was pulling turns that generated 50 times normal gravity while fighting at combat speed. The alien observers watched in horror as the human ship twisted and spun through space. Like a living creature, the computers showed that the crew should have been killed instantly, but they were not even injured. How is this possible? Demanded the lead observer, a crystalline being whose species had mastered space travel for 10,000 years. Captain Cha Min-seok smiled and activated the gravity compensation system. Human engineering, he explained simply. We adapt to survive. The Reports kept coming in from across the galaxy. Human traders were arriving at alien ports with goods that were better and cheaper than anything the established species could produce. Human doctors were curing diseases that had plagued entire civilizations for centuries. Human engineers were solving problems that alien scientists had considered impossible. But the most disturbing reports came from the war zones where human military advisors had been requested. Their tactics were so effective that conflicts that had raged for decades were ending in weeks. General Bai Jin-yuk was working with the hegemony military to end a rebellion that had been going on for 20 years. The alien generals had tried every conventional approach without success. Instead of using massive armies and overwhelming firepower, General Bai Jin-yuk used small teams and psychological warfare. He convinced the rebels that continuing to fight would only hurt their own people. The rebellion ended not with a great battle, but with a peace treaty that gave both sides what they really wanted. The hegemony generals could not understand how he had achieved in days what they had failed to do in years. The economic reports were equally alarming. Human trade proposals were so efficient that implementing them would revolutionize the entire galactic economy. Species that had grown rich through inefficient systems faced complete obsolescence. Dr. Shin Yemen was studying the cultural differences between humans and other galactic species. His findings were the most disturbing of almost. Species achieve stability through rigid social structures and unchanging traditions, he reported to the council, but humans are different. They thrive on change and adaptation. He showed examples of human history where entire civilizations had transformed themselves in just a few generations. Other species took thousands of years to make similar changes. This means they are unpredictable, he concluded. We cannot use our normal methods to understand or control them because they do not think like us. The council faced a crisis unlike anything in their long history. They had invited humanity to join as a junior member, but these newcomers were clearly superior in every way that mattered. Secret meetings were held in dark corners of the galaxy as species tried to decide what to do. Some wanted to destroy Earth before the humans became too powerful. Others wanted to ally with them, hoping to benefit from their innovations. The old power structures that had kept the galaxy stable for millennia were crumbling. Species that had never questioned their place in the hierarchy suddenly found themselves afraid of being left behind. Ambassador Velthary stood before the council once again, but now her crystalline features showed cracks of stress. We face a choice that will determine the future of galactic civilization. She gestured to the empty seats where several species representatives should have been sitting. Many of our members have already begun making direct contact with Earth, bypassing council authority. The room erupted in angry voices as species accused each other of betrayal and cowardice. The unity that had held the council together for thousands of years was breaking apart. In the middle of the chaos, a new message arrived from Earth. It was brief and simple, but it changed everything. We do not wish to destroy what you have built. The message read, we only want to help you build something better. The council chamber fell silent as the implications of those words sank in. The humans were not coming as conquerors, they were coming as teachers, and the galaxy would never be the same. The revelation was complete. The species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were about to become students, and their teachers were the supposedly primitive humans from a small blue planet at the edge of nowhere. The ancient hegemony had ruled the outer galaxy for 5,000 years with an iron fist emperor. Zackville sat on his crystal throne, receiving reports that filled him with a fear he had never known before. The humans had accepted his invitation to observe the hegemony war games, but General Bai Jin-yuk had done more than just watch. He had quietly revolutionized everything the hegemony thought they knew about warfare. Your Imperial Majesty reported, Admiral Kelvon, the humans have suggested modifications to our battle formations that would reduce casualties by 70% while increasing effectiveness. Emperor Zackville leaned forward on his throne. That is impossible. Our military doctrine has been perfected over thousands of years. How can these newcomers see flaws that our greatest minds have? General Bai Jin-yuk was invited to address the Hegemony War Council. He stood before a room full of alien generals who had conquered dozens of worlds using traditional tactics of overwhelming force. With your permission, he said politely, I would like to demonstrate alternative approaches using a small human fleet against your finest battle. Group. The hegemony generals exchanged glances of amusement. A tiny human force against their most powerful warships. It would be over in minutes, and would teach these upstart humans some humility. The demonstration began with the hegemony fleet arranged in perfect attack formation. Their massive ships moved forward in coordinated waves. Exactly as they had done for centuries, General Bei Jinruk's small fleet did not attack. Instead, they began broadcasting confusing signals and moving in seemingly random patterns. The hegemony commanders expected them to make a desperate charge instead. The human ships used psychology and misdirection. They convinced the hegemony fleet that they were being attacked from multiple directions when, in reality, there were no attacks at all. The mighty hegemony warships began firing on shadows and empty space while their formation fell apart in confusion. Within an hour, the legendary fleet had defeated itself without the humans firing a single shot. The economic revolution was happening even faster. Trade Minister Quan Suyang had presented her proposals to the Galactic Commerce Guild, and the results were staggering. The old trade routes that had been used for thousands of years were suddenly obsolete. Human logistics could move goods faster and cheaper than anyone had thought possible. Minister Quan Suyang met with the guild leaders in their golden palace on the trade world of Nexus. Her proposals were simple but revolutionary. Why do you move cargo ships one at a time when you could coordinate entire fleets? She asked. Why do you use fixed routes when flexible pathways could cut travel time in half? The guild leaders had grown wealthy from the inefficient old system, but they could not argue with mathematics. The human proposals would increase profits while reducing costs for everyone. Species that had struggled to afford basic goods under the old system suddenly found themselves with access to luxuries they had never imagined. Worlds that had been isolated by high shipping costs were connected to the galactic economy. Dr. Shin Yemen was working with the Cultural Exchange Commission, studying how different species adapted to change. His findings were disturbing to the established order. Most galactic species had achieved stability through rigid traditions and unchanging social structures. Change was slow and carefully controlled to avoid disrupting society. Humans were completely different. They embraced change as a natural part of life. Their entire civilization was built on the idea that tomorrow should be better than today. This fundamental difference in thinking made humans unpredictable and dangerous to species that relied on stability. The old way of doing things was suddenly being questioned everywhere. News of human innovations spread through underground networks faster than the council could control it. Species that had never questioned their place in the hierarchy began demanding answers. Why had their leaders not thought of these solutions? Why had they accepted inefficient systems for so long? Why were they being told that change was dangerous when humans showed it could be beneficial? The council emergency sessions became more desperate as member species began making direct contact with Earth. The old system of centralized control was breaking down. Ambassador Li Jisu established the first human embassy on Nexus Prime, the political center of the galaxy. Her approach to diplomacy was revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of making demands or offering bribes, she listened to what other species actually wanted, and then found ways to give it to them that benefited everyone. The Vrex Consortium had been struggling with pirate attacks on their merchant ships for decades. The Council peacekeeping forces had failed to stop the raids repeatedly. Ambassador Li Jisu studied the problem for 1 week, then proposed a solution that was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of hunting the pirates, they would eliminate the conditions that created piracy by improving economic opportunities in the outer systems and providing legitimate alternatives to crime. The pirate problem solved itself without firing a shot. The military implications became clear when Admiral Kim Young-ho responded to a distress call from the outer rim. The massive Bloodfang pirate armada had been terrorizing peaceful colonies for 30 years. The Council had sent multiple fleets against the pirates, but their hit and run tactics made them impossible to defeat. They would attack soft targets, then disappear into the asteroid fields. Admiral Kim Young-ho arrived with a small human fleet and studied the pirates' patterns for 3 days. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He offered to negotiate. The pirate leaders agreed to meet, expecting to demand tribute as they had from other species. Instead, Admiral Kim Young-ho presented them with an offer they could not refuse. He had analyzed their operations and found that they were not evil monsters but desperate people trying to survive. In forgotten regions of space, the Council had ignored their needs, so they turned to Krine. The human offer was simple, legitimate work protecting merchant convoys at fair wages plus assistance, developing their home systems into proper trading posts within a week. The most feared pirate fleet in the galaxy had become the most effective security force. Pirates who had been robbing ships were now protecting them. Word spread throughout the galaxy that humans did not just defeat their enemies, they turned them into allies. Their military success came from understanding rather than destruction. Dr. Moon Chaeyoung was studying the psychological differences between humans and other species. Her research explained why humans were so successful at solving problems that had stumped everyone else. Most species had evolved in stable environments where the best strategy was to find something that worked and keep doing it. Exactly the same way forever humans had evolved on a chaotic world where the environment was constantly changing. Survival required the ability to adapt quickly and find new solutions to new problems. This evolutionary background gave humans a unique mental flexibility. They were comfortable with uncertainty and saw change as an opportunity rather than a threat. The Council authority continued to fragment as species realized they no longer needed permission to improve their lives. Direct agreements with Earth became more common than official Council treaties. The old system of rigid hierarchy was being replaced by flexible partnerships based on mutual benefit. Species were valued for their contributions rather than their age or military power. Emperor Zaxel made a decision that would have been unthinkable months before. He dissolved the hegemony military command structure and asked General Bae Jinyuk to help create something better. The new system emphasized cooperation over domination and problem-solving over brute force. Former enemies began working together under human guidance. The transformation was not without resistance. Conservative factions on many worlds saw the changes as threats to their traditional way of life. Some species struggled to adapt to the new flexibility, but the benefits were undeniable. The galaxy was becoming more prosperous, more peaceful, and more innovative than ever before. What had begun as fear of human capabilities was becoming gratitude for human contributions. The paradigm shift was complete. The old order based on ancient traditions and rigid hierarchies was giving way to something new, a dynamic galaxy, where any species could thrive through cooperation and innovation. Humans had not conquered the galaxy through military force, they had revolutionized it through the simple act of showing that there were better ways to live. The galaxy split into two camps as species chose sides in the emerging new order. The Mercantile Alliance, led by shrewd trader civilizations, saw opportunity in the chaos, while conservative empires desperately tried to preserve the old ways. President Park Sung-hoon stood in the Oval Office of the Earth Government Building reading reports from across the galaxy. Requests for assistance were arriving faster than they could be processed. The Mercantile Alliance had been the first to reach out. Their message was direct and honest. They wanted to learn human methods before their competitors did. Ambassador Zeth Corvain of the Alliance arrived on Earth with a proposal that surprised everyone. Instead of demanding tribute or seeking to exploit humanity, they offered genuine partnership. "We have watched your people revolutionize everything they touch," he told President Park Sung-hoon. "We want to learn from you and share our knowledge in return." The negotiations were unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of the usual power games and hidden agendas, both sides simply stated what they wanted and worked together to find solutions. The Alliance offered access to their vast trading networks and ancient knowledge, while Earth provided innovation and new approaches to old problems. Ambassador Lee Jasu established the first human embassy on Nexus Prime in a building that became a symbol of the new era. Its design combined human creativity with alien artistry, showing that cooperation could create beauty. Her approach to diplomacy was revolutionary. She held open sessions where any species could present their problems and work together to find solutions. The embassy became known as the House of Possibilities. The first crisis came when the Outer Rim colony sent a desperate plea for help. The Bloodfang pirates had been terrorizing trade routes for decades, and the Council peacekeeping forces had failed repeatedly. Admiral Kim Young-ho assembled a small fleet and set course for the Outer Rim. His officers were nervous about facing the most feared pirates in the galaxy, but the admiral was calm when they arrived at the last known pirate stronghold. Admiral Kim Young-ho did something unprecedented. He sent a message requesting a meeting with the pirate leadership. The pirates agreed to meet, expecting to negotiate tribute as they had with other species. Instead, they found themselves facing a human who wanted to understand their situation. Admiral Kim Young-ho discovered that the pirates were not evil monsters, but desperate people from forgotten worlds. The Council had ignored their needs and left them with no choice but crime. The human solution was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of destroying the pirates, they would be offered legitimate work protecting merchant convoys at fair wages. The most feared pirate fleet in the galaxy became the most effective security force in less than a week. Former raiders were now protecting the same ships they used to attack. News of this success spread throughout the galaxy, and requests for human assistance poured in from dozens of worlds. Species that had suffered under various threats suddenly saw hope. The economic transformation was even more dramatic. Human trade methods were so efficient that implementing them doubled the prosperity of entire star systems. Dr. Moon Chae-young was studying the psychological impact of rapid change on different species. Her research showed that most aliens were struggling to adapt to the new reality. Species that had lived the same way for thousands of years were finding it difficult to embrace the flexibility that humans took for granted. Some were thriving while others were falling behind. The key was education rather than force. Humans began establishing schools throughout the galaxy where aliens could learn new ways of thinking without abandoning their cultural identity. The military revolution was equally profound. The old system of massive fleets and overwhelming firepower was being replaced by smaller, more flexible forces. Admiral Oh Se-yoon was chosen to command the new Galactic Defense Force, a revolutionary military organization that emphasized cooperation over domination. Former enemies now worked together under human leadership. The hegemony warriors fought alongside council peacekeepers, while pirates turned security forces protected them all. The transformation was not without challenges. Conservative factions on various worlds resisted change, and some species struggled to adapt to the new flexibility. The Dominion of Eternal Order declared that they would never accept human influence and began building defensive barriers around their territory. President Park Sung-hoon made it clear that humanity would not force change on any one. Species that wanted to maintain their traditional ways would be left in peace. This tolerance actually made the human approach more attractive. Many species that had been afraid of forced change began to consider voluntary cooperation. The Council tried to maintain some authority by offering to regulate human activities, but their power was already broken. Too many species had seen the benefits of direct cooperation. Emergency sessions were called, but fewer representatives attended each time. The old system of centralized control was becoming irrelevant as species made their own choices. The cultural impact was perhaps most significant. Ancient rivalries between species began to dissolve as they found common ground in working toward shared goals. Ambassador Cho Daman specialized in conflict resolution and was called to mediate a dispute between the crystalline collective and the metal shapers that had lasted for 2,000 years. The conflict had begun over mining rights but had evolved into a cultural war with deep religious and philosophical differences. Neither side would compromise. Ambassador Cho Daman spent weeks learning about both cultures and discovered that their core values were actually very similar. They both believed in creating beauty through craftsmanship. The solution was elegant. Both species were invited to collaborate on a joint project that would showcase their abilities, while creating something neither could achieve alone. The resulting crystal and metal sculptures became famous throughout the galaxy as symbols of what cooperation could accomplish. The ancient enemies became close allies. Similar successes were happening everywhere. Human diplomats were resolving conflicts that had seemed impossible by finding the underlying needs beneath the surface. Positions, the old council system of rigid castes and predetermined roles was being replaced by merit-based cooperation. Species were valued for their contributions rather than their history. Some worlds chose to remain independent, maintaining their traditional ways while trading peacefully with the new alliance. Humanity respected their choices. The benefits of cooperation were becoming undeniable. The galaxy was more prosperous, more peaceful, and more innovative than ever before. Scientific advances were accelerating as species shared knowledge freely. Medical breakthroughs eliminated diseases that had plagued entire civilizations. Engineering projects that would have taken centuries were completed in years. Agricultural improvements ended hunger on dozens of worlds. The transformation was not just about technology or economics, it was about hope. Species that had been locked in ancient patterns suddenly saw infinite possibilities. Young aliens from across the galaxy came to study at human universities, learning not just new technologies but new ways of thinking about problems. The great realignment was nearing completion. The galaxy was dividing into those who embraced change and cooperation and those who clung to old ways. But even the conservative holdouts were finding it harder to resist as their citizens saw the prosperity and freedom that cooperation brought. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through force or deception. They had simply shown that there were better ways to live and let others choose for themselves. The choice was becoming clear: join the new era of cooperation and prosperity or be left behind. By the march of progress, most species were choosing the future over the past, and that future was brighter than anyone had dared to imagine. 6 months after first contact, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The ancient council chambers on Nexus Prime had been converted into the headquarters of the new Galactic Assembly, where species gathered as equals rather than subjects. President Moon Jiang stood at the podium of the orbital platform above Earth as she prepared to address every inhabited world in the galaxy. The speech would be broadcast to trillions of beings and mark the beginning of a new era. Citizens of the galaxy. She began, her voice carrying across the stars through quantum communication networks that humans had helped build. We stand at the threshold of greatness. The viewing screens throughout the galaxy showed the transformation that had taken place in just 6 months. Trade routes that had remained unchanged for millennia were now bustling with activity. We did not come to conquer. President Moon Jiang continued, we came to build something better together. The old ways kept you safe but stagnant. We offer growth even if it means uncertainty. The economic revolution was complete. Species that had barely survived under the old system were now thriving. The rigid trade monopolies had been replaced by open markets where innovation was rewarded. The Quellian Federation had been a minor species, struggling to sell their beautiful artwork under the old system. Now their creations were prized throughout the galaxy and their artists were wealthy beyond imagination. The Builders Guild had been restricted to simple construction projects under council regulations. Now they were creating architectural wonders that combined the best ideas from dozens of species. Admiral Oseyan commanded the new Galactic Defense Force from a ship that represented the pinnacle of cooperative engineering. Human innovation combined with alien materials and designs. The Defense Force was unlike any military organization in galactic history. Former enemies worked side by side, united by shared purpose rather than forced obedience. The hegemony warriors brought their discipline and courage. The council peacekeepers provided their knowledge of galactic law. The former pirates contributed their understanding of frontier survival. Together they had eliminated the threat of the Void Hunters, an ancient enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. By working together and sharing their strengths, the technological renaissance was even more dramatic. Human scientists like Dr. Zhang Minyang worked alongside alien researchers, creating innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. The medical breakthroughs were revolutionary. Diseases that had plagued entire species for millennia were eliminated through cooperation between human doctors and alien healers. The Christec plague that had been killing the Silicon Collective for 10,000 years was cured in 3 weeks by combining human antiviral research with alien crystal healing. Engineering advances made space travel faster and safer. New propulsion systems could cross the galaxy in days rather than months, opening up possibilities that had never existed before. Agricultural improvements ended hunger on dozens of worlds. Human farming techniques combined with alien plant Species created crops that could grow in any environment. The terraforming projects were the most ambitious in galactic history. Entire worlds were being transformed into gardens through the combined efforts of multiple species. The cultural impact was perhaps most significant. Ambassador Chodaman had established cultural exchange programs that were breaking down barriers between species. Ancient prejudices were dissolving as species learned to understand each other. The fear of differences was being replaced by appreciation for diversity. The Harmony Festivals had become the most popular events in the galaxy, celebrations where dozens of species shared their music, art, and stories. Young beings from across the galaxy attended integrated schools where they learned not just facts but how to think creatively and solve problems together. The old council rigid caste system was a memory now. Species were valued for their contributions rather than their age or military power. The tiny mushroom folk who had been ignored for centuries because of their size were now respected as the galaxy's greatest chemists. Their knowledge of molecular structures was unmatched. The gentle giants who had been feared because of their appearance were beloved. Teachers whose patience and wisdom helped educate children from dozens of species. Some worlds had chosen to remain independent, maintaining their traditional ways while trading peacefully with the new alliance. Humanity respected their choices completely. The eternal monasteries continued their ancient meditations undisturbed. Human ships protected their space but never interfered with their spiritual practices. The neo-traditionalists maintained their rigid social structures but benefited from improved technology and trade opportunities. The transformation was not without challenges. Conservative factions on various worlds still resisted change. Some species struggled to adapt to the new flexibility required, but the benefits were undeniable. The galaxy was more prosperous, more peaceful, and more innovative than ever before. What had begun as panic over humanity's arrival had become gratitude. The old fears about human domination had proven groundless. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through force but had revolutionized it through cooperation. The refugee crisis on the Outer Rim had been solved through relocation programs that gave displaced populations new homes and opportunities. The pirate problem had been eliminated by addressing its root causes rather than just fighting symptoms. The ancient war between the Fire Worlds and the Ice Realms had ended when both sides discovered they could achieve their goals through cooperation. Captain Lee Woojin now held the rank of fleet admiral as he stood on the bridge of the flagship humanity had built for the galaxy. The ship was a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. The vessel incorporated the best technology from every species in the Alliance. Its hull was made from crystalline collective materials. Its engines used hegemony power cores and its computers ran on human software. The stars themselves seemed brighter in this new age, as if the universe itself approved of the transformation. Energy levels throughout the galaxy had increased as species worked together. Admiral Lee Woojin received reports from across the galaxy and smiled. Every day brought news of new discoveries, new cooperations, new solutions to old problems. The exploration fleets were pushing into unknown regions of space, not as conquerors but as partners in discovery. Multiple species working together to unlock the secrets of the universe. The research stations were making breakthrough discoveries every week. Human curiosity combined with alien knowledge was revealing truths that had been hidden for millions of years. The galaxy was no longer a collection of stagnant empires ruled by ancient prejudices. It had become a dynamic community where any species could thrive through innovation and cooperation. Transformation had been so complete that it was hard to remember how things had been before. New generations were growing up in a universe where cooperation was natural. Children who had never known the old system of rigid hierarchies and eternal conflicts were creating art, music, and technology that celebrated diversity and unity. The future stretched ahead, bright with infinite possibilities. The galaxy had learned that strength came not from domination but from the courage to embrace change and growth. President Moon Jae-yong concluded her historic speech with words that would be remembered for generations. To the stars and beyond. Together, the universe had indeed been left in panic by humanity arrival, but from that chaos had emerged something beautiful, a galaxy united not